So you're thinking about selling your home, or maybe you're in the process of selling your home. And a lot of times it can be daunting because there's so many things to do to get the house ready, get it on the market, all this different stuff. And people go, okay, what do I need to be watching out for when we finally get an offer on our house? So today I'm going to go through 3 things that you need to be paying attention to when you get an offer. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Real Talk Real Estate. I'm your host, Mark Cannon, local realtor here in the Phoenix area with my home group real estate and owner of the Benchmark Real Estate team. As always, guys, this is a podcast format. Here to be real with you, here to be transparent with you, because there's no other way to really do it. That's why it's called Real Talk Real Estate. I'm here to give you accurate information so that way you can make the best decision possible. Not trying to convince you of anything, just trying to give you information. All right, so today we're talking about the 3 things to look for in an offer when you're selling your house, because we're in a different market. So depending on where you live, across the valley, there are different markets. So for instance, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Chandler, leaning balanced sellers markets. Then you've got, Surprise, Buckeye, Maricopa, all these places farther out, heavy buyers markets. Then you've got places that are balanced markets. So it really depends on where you are and what kind of offers you're going to get. But we are predominantly across the valley in a buyer/balanced market in most of the markets. So what does that mean? You got to be willing to negotiate. This isn't 2021. This isn't where you're just going to be able to put the house on, it sells in 2 weeks, and we didn't have to do a thing. We're not in that world anymore. I say this to sellers, please, even if you don't work with me, please, just be realistic, because if you're looking at your house going, okay, my roof is 30 years old, the AC is 25 years old, I'm not going to touch either of those. That's probably not realistic, unless you're in a heavy seller's market somewhere, which is probably not likely. So it's one of those that you can't just do that like we did in 2021. You got to be willing to address things. And a lot of times when I go to listings, I say, hey, you might want to address a couple smaller things up front to make it look better, because curb appeal matters now. And there's another video I did on that, so you can go check that out. But the 3 things we're going to talk about today. So let me pull some stuff up here on my screen. So first thing is contract terms. So obviously when you're negotiating with a buyer, when they come to you, you may not go with the first offer because it may be trash. So a lot of times we get these investor offers that are just putting it out there. It's 150K under. Like, obviously we're like, no, we're not doing that, right? So it's one of those that the contract terms matter. So the timelines, when is it closing? What kind of concessions are we giving up? Are there contingencies? A contingency, if you don't know, means, okay, let's say they're selling their home. Is it under contract? Is it through their inspection period? Is it even on the market yet? Like, we need to know those things. And again, that's why I'm going to stress up front, have a good realtor, because they need to know all of these things. If they don't, that's a problem, because this is stuff that we're supposed to be paying attention to and help guide you through it. So all those different things affect your bottom line. And I'll show an example on the screen here of like what a net sheet would look like. So I run these whenever we're getting offers from people to show my sellers, hey, here's how much you would make at their current offer. If we make an adjustment, here's what it would look like. So that's a net sheet. If you want an example of that, email to you, let me know. I can always do that. But it's one of those that contract terms matter. Now that's negotiation. You're doing that with your agent and you're trying to get your terms. So let's say you agree on those terms, or not even before that, before we even agree. The second thing that you need to consider is financing strength. So what do I mean by that? Do I mean if someone's FHA, you should just write them off? No, I don't mean that at all. A VA offer, a FHA offer, good offers, okay? But what we do need to pay attention to, and this is where I've run into, and not all agents do their due diligence. I'm just going to be honest with you, they don't. Like when I get an offer, I call the lender right away. I talk with the agent, obviously, but then I'm calling the lender. So like, for instance, if let's say I get a conventional or FHA offer that's putting the minimum amount down, I have questions. Okay, they're putting the minimum amount down. They're probably going to be asking for concessions then to cover closing costs and things like that. Okay, well, are they at the top of their budget? Because a lot of times when we see people fall out, it's because they're at the top of their budget. Oh no, I don't want to do this. This is too much money. And then they back out through the inspection period or something else, or they get loan denial, right? And so that's something that we need to be paying attention to. Like, what is their financial strength? What does it look like? I ask a lot of questions of lenders. Some of them won't answer some of my questions because I ask very pointed questions and they don't have to tell me some of that information, but some of them do. And it's great because when they do, I'm like, okay, they didn't have to tell me that. Maybe they shouldn't have told me that, but I'm going to ask because I'm trying to get as much information from my seller as possible, right? The third thing goes right along with that is the buyer motivation. Okay, so what is their motivation? There's a lot of people out there in a buyer's market. Like, so if you're out in a buyer's market somewhere, there's a lot of people just throwing crap at the wall. They're trying to see what sticks. They'll come in, let's offer 80K under, let's go. And it depends on your price point. Like, obviously 80K under at $1 million is totally different than 80K under at $400,000. So, but it's one of those that, what's their motivation? Do they really love the home? Or are they just trying to see if you'll just take the offer? I've had a bunch of those recently where I've just seen people kind of throwing it out to see there. And I'm like, they're not really that interested in this house. And then I'll find out by asking questions of the realtor. Oh, they like this other house, but they're not sure they're going to get it. Again, buyer motivations. Now, all of these things really depend on your agent. So that's why it's important to hire a great agent, because your agent is going to help you walk through all these things. They should be doing all of this. They should be doing their research. They should be looking at all of this stuff. Like for me, like I look up every agent that sends me an offer. I want to know how many transactions have they done? Are they experienced? Are they not experienced? Like, I want to know that stuff, because for me, that's ammo for me to be able to use to be able to negotiate. So make sure that your agent understands the stuff if you're going to hire somebody. Make sure they know what they're doing. I would love to have a conversation with you if you don't have an agent. My information's right here. I'd love for you to reach out. I'd love to take you to coffee, love to come see your house, love to help you however I can. I work real estate through relationships. It's relationships over transactions. I want long-lasting clients. I want clients for forever. That's what I want. I don't want, a transaction of, okay, see you, never going to hear from me again. No, I do events. I do so many different things for my clients because I care about them. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So I hope you'll reach out. Guys, you've been listening to Real Talk Real Estate. I'll catch you next time.